Currently, for VLAN 10 and 100, DSW1 is the root bridge. So if we look at the output of show spanning tree VLAN 10 and show spanning tree VLAN 100, we will be able to see that DSW1 is the root bridge for both of those VLANs. So VLAN 10, this is the root bridge. VLAN 100, this is the root bridge. If we go to DSW2, when we look at the output of show spanning tree for VLAN 20, we can see that it is the root bridge for VLAN 20, and for VLAN 200, it's also the root bridge for VLAN 200. What happens now if DSW1 fails? If DSW1 fails, it's no longer available to be the root bridge for VLAN 10 and VLAN 100. So who will become the root bridge in that case? It will be the device with the next best priority and MAC address. Right now, for VLAN 10 and 100, ASW1 is using the default value, 32,768. So is DSW2, so is ASW2. So there's a tie in the priorities. So the MAC addresses are then examined. And ASW2 has the best MAC address. Therefore, ASW2 would become the root bridge if DSW1 fails. And we don't want that. We would prefer to have another distribution layer switch take over that root bridge role instead of having an access layer switch take over that root bridge role. So what can we do? We can go to DSW2 and give it the next best priority for VLAN 10 and 100. So that way there, if DSW1 ever goes away, DSW2, ASW1 and ASW2 check to see who has the best bridge ID, and it will be DSW2 because it has what? The lowest priority. But we have to make sure the priority doesn't go lower than DSW1. Well, what is the priority on DSW1 right now for VLAN 10 and 100? It's 0. It's 0. And so since ASW1 and ASW2 are using the defaults of 32,768, we could set DSW2 to any value between 0 and 32,768. So we can't be better than DSW1, we can't be worse than ASW1 and ASW2. So let's do that. Configure terminal, spanning tree VLAN 10 and 100. We are going to give it a priority of, well, we have to go in increments of 4,096. Let's just throw an arbitrary number in here so we can see our values that were allowed. Allowed values are 0, 4,096, 8192. So if I want to give DSW2 the best chance of becoming the secondary root bridge, the root bridge that takes over for VLAN 10 and 100, if DSW1 goes away, I'm going to give it the next possible value in line, which is 4,096. And that's not the command, that's the command, 4,096. So now when we execute that, it will have a local priority of 4,096 for those two VLANs. Do show spanning tree for VLAN 10. So you can see the root ID, so the root bridge is still saying priorities 10. Whereas the local bridge ID is saying the priorities 4,106. And if we go over to ASW1 or 2, let's just go over to ASW2 and type in show span for VLAN 10. We can see that it's using 32,768. So we have given DSW2 the best chance of becoming the root bridge for VLAN 10 and 100 if DSW1 vanishes from the topology. It fails, it breaks, it reloads, reboots, something happens. We are giving it the best chance of becoming the root bridge at that point in time. We also want to do the same thing for DSW1. We want DSW1 to back up DSW2. So if DSW2 for VLAN 10 and 200 fails, well then DSW1 can be that secondary, that backup root bridge for DSW2. So on DSW1, though, I want to show you another command that we can use. Spanning tree VLAN 20 and 200 root. Instead of saying primary, we can say secondary in this case. So secondary is a macro, a script that's run in the background that will set a priority value for DSW1 in regards to VLAN 20 and 200. So if we type in do show span for VLAN 20, you can see the priority is not the default anymore. It's 28,672. 28,672. Now, is that better than ASW1 and ASW2 right now? Let's take a look at that. Let's examine that. We'll go to VLAN 20 on ASW2, and it is. What about ASW1? It is as well. Show span for VLAN 20. Show span VLAN 20. There we go. So it is better than ASW1 as well, which is sitting at 32,768. So far so good, but it's slightly different than the root primary command. Remember the root primary command will analyze the current root bridge priority and make sure it's better than it. Well, when you type in root secondary, there's no examination that's done. It automatically sets it to this value. So if by chance another switch in the topology has a better priority than this value, it's too bad. Those switches will have the better priority and they will become the root bridge before this device ever becomes the root bridge. So although you have the option of using root secondary, make sure that it accomplishes your goal of making DSW1 the switch within the topology that has the second best priority or the second best bridge ID when compared to all the other switches for that particular spanning tree instance for the various VLANs. So it works in this case, but it might not work in your case 100% of the time because other switches might not be using the default values. But if we look at the output now of show spanning tree, show run, pipe to include span, I want you to take a really good look at what the root secondary command did. It simply set a priority value. That's all it did. So it doesn't guarantee at all that it will be the secondary. Just like root primary doesn't guarantee it'll be the root bridge. It just finds the best value at that moment in time and will use it.